I've noticed in the last number of years that not only has there been an increasing amount of moe in shows, perhaps too much, some would think, but also how that moe ends up being used for narrative effect. The use of moe is there to set the tone for the series in question, bringing a sense of lightheartedness. But I found that once in a while, moe ends up in use to do the exact opposite of what's normally intended. If moe's job is to relax the viewer, to lighten the mood, then it's also quite possible to use moe to tell a much darker story, one that uses the native calmness of the art style to balance a grim style of storytelling. Now let's back up for a sec, because I'm aware that the word moe is not something indicative of an art style, it's something far more general. While it varies depending on who you ask, I'd say that the whole idea of moe is more of a generic feeling that can apply to any kind of character. Not just cutesy little kids with big eyes, it's more so a sense of familial protection that it induces. So for example, Guts from Berserk could technically be considered moe, or Akane from Psycho-Pass, if you have this burning desire within you to protect them from the harshness of the world. But what we're going to be talking about today is a visual element that is very frequently associated with inducing the feeling of moe. It's not the only way, but as far as anime goes, it's been proven to work consistently for a lot of fans. So if you have a somewhat gruesome story to tell, you could use realistic art to get the job done, but think for a moment. What could you do if you forego the realism and instead inflict your emotionally dark tale on characters who look too good or too pure for this world, tearing them away from a peaceful haven that they seem to belong to into a rabbit hole of despair? It's my belief that using moe for this purpose is very close to adding comedy to darker, depressing moments. The idea that if the characters are going through hard times, that you can use humor as a means to lighten the mood, giving both the characters and the audience a break from what would otherwise be too depressing and not very enjoyable to watch. Not everyone has the knack for writing comedy though. Comedy is also very subjective, so making sure that your material will be enough to brighten your audience is a challenge. In comes the moe. Unlike jokes, moe blob character designs are there as a consistent element that doesn't need allotted breaks dedicated to it. Because these cute, round, wide-eyed faces are with us no matter what's happening on screen, the content itself doesn't need to hold back. Everything becomes so much easier to do when the lightheartedness that you need for balance is built into the design of the narrative. But then the next course of action is to see how far down you can take it. Now, one of the first best examples of this is from a magical girl series from 2011, Madoka Magica. No surprise there, I'm sure. Madoka is a series that takes the well-known tropes of the mahou shoujo genre and within 3 episodes turns it on its head into a much more tragic tale. When the story starts, we begin with a very bright world that Madoka lives in. We see her school, her friends, the cute bunny rabbit that she meets that totally has her best interests in mind. But it's not long after the show begins that we start to see the cracks, to see the fluffy facade of the universe shatter at the very brutal on-screen death of what was once thought to be a main character. This series of events wouldn't have played out the same way or had the same level of impact with a different art style. There's a certain level of depth that the art style allows the writers to use, where otherwise they would not be able to dive deep enough. Take a series like Haibane or Death Parade, for example. Both of these shows highlight different types of tragedy based on regret. And while I'm not going to try and downplay the darkness that these shows portray, there is a limit to what they are able to do. There is such a thing as going too far. Neither of these shows go that one step beyond. They never try to push too far, and that's a good thing. They know the limit of what they can handle. They tell their various tragic tales, but not in a way that's uncomfortable for the audience. What would happen if you did take it too far? Then what we would get is a tale that might be brilliant, but also be so dark that you might only want to watch it once, if you ever want to watch it at all. For me, this has only ever happened once. It's a film from 1988 directed by Isao Takahata and released by Studio Ghibli of all places. Grave of the Fireflies. I won't spoil it for those who have seen it, but it follows the story of two young Japanese children who are trying to live and survive in Japan during World War II. It's a tale with a lot of hope to it, but as with all stories about the horrors of war, it does not have the happiest of endings. Then again, even if a series has dark leanings and a Moe blob art style, it doesn't mean that it's going to be the darkest series that you've ever seen. Airing right now, for example, is a show called Girls' Last Tour. It's an anime where two characters who look like they were ripped straight out of Hidamari's sketch are traversing a post-apocalyptic wasteland. And there are some moments that are questionable as far as how dark the show wants to go, but for the most part, it seems to be a series telling a traditional slice-of-life story where most of the darkness comes from the setting and what's inherent with the unknown. Well, that kind of unknown anyway. The unknown of there could be bad things lying in wait, but more than likely it's just an empty wasteland. Unlike the Abyss, where there could be bad things lying in wait, because 9 times out of 10, there actually is. Maiden Abyss is the last example that I have as a series that takes the visual aspect and tries to see how deep it can go, this time quite literally with a giant pit in the ground as a reference. The idea behind Maiden Abyss is that you have two cute Moe blobs traversing down a deep, dark hole in search of one of their parents. But, fun fact about the Abyss itself is that, well, you can go down as far as you want. If you try to go back up again, you start to suffer increasingly horrible physical side effects, starting from headaches and nausea, all the way to bleeding out of every orifice in your body. But the characters are cute, right? What's the worst that can happen? The content of Maiden Abyss causes a whiplash between extremes. The cuteness of the designs, which are so far removed from realism, combined with the most disenfranchising consequences imaginable, is the epitome of this idea. Showing us some of the most brutal subject matter that's come out of anime in the last number of years, while not driving people away because of its content. It is literally just a spoonful of moe that helps the tragedy go down. It's a crushing sensation because it brings this supposed purity down to a realistic level. When you see the wide-eyed anime kids getting bloodied up and screaming or crying out in utter desperation. It's like curtains are being torn down in front of you, revealing them to be just as vulnerable as anyone in the real world. And people seem to like that crushing feeling. It's cathartic to see nice things come. And that's it from me. Please subscribe if you liked the video, follow me on Twitter if you feel so inclined, and hey, if you like what I do here and feel like helping out, please go and check out my Patreon page, and if you feel it within your heart, please consider donating. Specifically though, I would like to thank Calhoun Boy, being Theo, Siri Yamako, Victor Ekmark, Joshua Garcia, Yunuru Dover Queen, and Robert Chumzai for being especially awesome, and until next time, ladies, gentlemen, and others, stay frosty.